Introduction: The Nature of Fear and the Path to Freedom. Fear is perhaps the most universal human experience. From the moment we are born, fear shapes how we interact with the world, how we protect ourselves, how we make decisions, and how we relate to the unknown. It manifests in countless forms: the fear of death, the fear of loss, the fear of rejection, the fear of failure, the fear of success, the fear of change, and even the fear of fear itself. For many of us, fear operates like an invisible prison, constraining our choices, limiting our potential, and preventing us from experiencing the full richness and depth of life. We avoid situations that might trigger our fears. We construct elaborate defenses to protect ourselves from perceived threats, and we spend enormous amounts of energy trying to control an inherently uncontrollable world. Yet the Buddha and the great Zen masters who followed in his footsteps understood something profound about fear. They saw that fear, like all mental states, is not a solid, unchangeable reality, but a conditioned phenomenon that arises based on specific causes and conditions. More importantly, they discovered that fear loses its power when we learn to meet it with awareness, understanding, and compassion, rather than with resistance, avoidance, or identification. The Buddhist path offers us a revolutionary approach to working with fear, not by trying to eliminate it, not by pretending it does not exist, but by transforming our relationship to it through wisdom and practice. This comprehensive guide explores the profound Buddhist and Zen teachings on conquering fear and finding true freedom. Drawing from ancient suttas, classic Zen stories, and the wisdom of enlightened masters across centuries, we will examine both the theoretical understanding of fear and the practical methods for working with it in our daily lives. You will learn why fear arises, how it operates in your mind and body, what keeps it alive, and most importantly, how to meet it skillfully so that it no longer controls you. These are not merely abstract philosophical concepts, but practical tools that have helped countless practitioners over millennia to find peace, courage, and liberation in the face of life's inevitable uncertainties and challenges. The journey from fear to freedom is not about becoming someone who never experiences fear. Even the Buddha and the greatest Zen masters experienced the arising of fear in their minds and bodies. What changes is not the presence of fear, but our response to it. When we stop fighting against fear, stop trying to push it away, stop identifying with it as who we are, and instead learn to observe it with clear awareness and compassionate understanding, something remarkable happens. Fear loses its grip. The prison walls begin to dissolve. We discover that we are not our fears, that we are the spacious awareness in which fear arises and passes away like clouds in the sky. This discovery is true freedom, and it is available to each of us through dedicated practice and genuine understanding. In the pages that follow, you will encounter profound teachings, illuminating stories, and practical exercises that can transform your relationship with fear. Some of these teachings may challenge your current understanding. Some of the stories may seem paradoxical or even nonsensical at first glance. This is intentional. Zen, in particular, uses paradox and unexpected perspectives to shake us out of our habitual ways of thinking and to point us directly toward a truth that cannot be captured in words alone. Approach this material with an open mind and a willingness to question your assumptions. Read not just with your intellect, but with your whole being. Allow the teachings to work on you at multiple levels. Most importantly, do not just read about these practices, actually practice them. Liberation from fear is not a theoretical understanding, but a lived experience, and it comes through direct engagement with the teachings in your own life, moment by moment, breath by breath. Part 1. Understanding the Roots of Fear. Chapter 1. The Buddhist Understanding of Fear. In the Abhaya-sutta, the discourse on fearlessness, the Buddha speaks about the nature of fear. and its relationship to our attachments and aversions. He teaches that fear arises from our grasping at what we want to keep and our resistance to what we want to avoid. When we cling to people, possessions, ideas, or even our sense of self, we automatically create the conditions for fear, because everything we cling to is subject to change, loss, and death. The tighter we hold on, the more terrified we become of losing what we have grasped. Similarly, when we resist unpleasant experiences, painful emotions, or unwanted circumstances, we create fear around the possibility of encountering what we are trying to avoid. Our lives become organized around approaching what we desire and fleeing from what we fear, and in this constant movement toward and away, we find no peace. The Buddha identified fear as one of the fundamental afflictions that bind us to suffering. In the Pali Canon, fear is often discussed in relation to the three poisons: greed, hatred, and delusion. Greed creates fear of not getting what we want or losing what we have. Hatred creates fear of encountering what we dislike or being harmed by what threatens us. Delusion creates fear because when we do not see things clearly as they actually are, we imagine dangers that may not exist and fail to recognize actual threats when they arise. These three poisons work together to generate a pervasive sense of unease, a background anxiety that colors our entire experience of life. Even in moments of apparent safety and comfort, there lurks the fear that this too will change, that suffering is waiting just around the corner. What makes Buddhist understanding of fear so revolutionary is its insight into the constructed nature of fear. Fear is not an inherent quality of reality, but a mental fabrication that arises based on how we relate to our experience. Two people can face the exact same situation, one consumed by fear, the other completely at ease, because fear is not in the situation itself, but in our interpretation of it, our stories about it, our resistance to it, and our identification with the vulnerable sense of self that feels threatened by it. This is tremendously good news because it means that fear is workable. We cannot always change external circumstances, but we can transform how we relate to them, and in doing so, we transform our experience of fear. The Buddhist analysis goes deeper still. Fear, the Buddha taught, is intimately connected to our fundamental misunderstanding of who and what we are. We believe ourselves to be solid, separate, permanent selves that exist independently and that need to be protected, defended, and preserved. This belief in a fixed self that can be threatened is the foundation upon which all our fears are built. When we deeply investigate this sense of self, when we look for it with clear attention, we discover something remarkable. We cannot find this solid self anywhere. What we call I is actually a constantly changing process, a flow of physical sensations, feelings, perceptions, mental formations, and consciousness, none of which is permanent, none of which is separate from the rest of reality, none of which can be called me or mine in any ultimate sense. This insight into anatta, or non-self, is perhaps the most profound antidote to fear that Buddhism offers. When we realize that there is no solid separate self to protect, much of our fear simply dissolves. Who is there to be threatened? Who is there to die? Of course, the body-mind organism continues, and we still take appropriate care of it. But the desperate clinging fear that arises from believing in a separate self that must be preserved at all costs begins to loosen its hold. We see that we are not separate from the flow of life, but expressions of it, temporary patterns in an ever-changing dance, and this seeing brings a profound peace and fearlessness. The Buddha also taught about the role of ignorance in creating and perpetuating fear. When we do not see the impermanent,
unsatisfactory, and non-self nature of all phenomena, we live in a state of fundamental confusion about reality. This confusion leads us to expect permanence where there is only change, to seek lasting satisfaction in what cannot provide it, and to defend a self that does not exist in the way we imagine. From this confusion, fear naturally arises. We fear change because we want permanence. We fear loss because we believe the things we have are truly ours. We fear death because we believe we are this separate self that will be annihilated. But when wisdom arises, when we begin to see things as they actually are, these fears lose their basis. We recognize that change is not something to fear, but the very nature of reality, that loss is inevitable because nothing is permanent, and that death is simply a transition in an ongoing process that was never ours to begin with. Understanding these Buddhist teachings about fear is the foundation for actually working with fear in our lives. When we understand that fear arises from grasping and aversion, from the belief in a separate self, and from fundamental ignorance about the nature of reality, we begin to see where our attention and effort need to be directed. We do not need to fight against fear or try to eliminate it through force of will. Instead, we work on releasing our attachments, cultivating equanimity, investigating the nature of self, and developing clear seeing into the true nature of reality. As we do this work, fear naturally diminishes, and in its place arises a confidence and peace that is not dependent on external circumstances, but flows from understanding and wisdom. This is the path the Buddha pointed toward, and it is a path each of us can walk.
Chapter 2. The Physiology of Fear. Understanding the Body's Response. To work skillfully with fear, it is essential to understand not only the psychological and philosophical dimensions, but also the physical manifestation of fear in the body. The Buddha was deeply interested in embodied experience, and much of his teaching centers on developing awareness of the body and its sensations. Fear is not merely a thought or emotion, it is a full-body experience that involves the activation of ancient survival mechanisms that we share with all mammals. When we perceive a threat, whether real or imagined, the amygdala in the brain triggers what is commonly known as the fight, flight, freeze response. The sympathetic nervous system activates, flooding the body with stress hormones like adrenaline and cortisol. The heart races, breathing becomes rapid and shallow, muscles tense, digestion slows, and blood flow redirects to the large muscle groups in preparation for action. This physiological response is perfectly designed for dealing with immediate physical threats. If a tiger is chasing you, you need your body to mobilize for running or fighting. The problem is that in modern life, most of our fears are not about immediate physical danger. We experience the same physiological activation when we fear rejection, failure, public speaking, financial insecurity, or the judgment of others. Our bodies prepare us to fight or flee from threats that cannot be punched or outrun. This creates a state of chronic activation where the stress response is triggered repeatedly throughout the day, leading to exhaustion, anxiety, physical illness, and a generalized sense of being under threat even when we are objectively safe. The Buddha taught that the body is a profound teacher if we learn to listen to it with awareness. In the Satipatthana Sutta, the discourse on the foundations of mindfulness, the first foundation is mindfulness of the body. We are instructed to pay close attention to bodily sensations, to breathing, to posture, to the elements of the body, and to the body's changing states. This is not merely an intellectual exercise, but a direct, felt investigation of what it is actually like to inhabit a body moment by moment. When we bring this quality of attention to fear, something remarkable happens.
Instead of being completely identified with the fear and caught up in the thoughts and stories that accompany it, we begin to notice fear as a set of physical sensations arising in the body. Where exactly do you feel fear in your body? Perhaps it manifests as tightness in the chest, a knot in the stomach, tension in the shoulders, shakiness in the hands, or a feeling of being unable to breathe fully. When you bring curious, non-judgmental attention to these sensations, you discover that they are not solid or permanent. They arise, they change, they intensify, they soften, they move around. The sensation you labeled as fear is actually a dynamic, fluctuating pattern of energy in the body. By investigating it closely, you begin to see that what seemed like one big, overwhelming thing called fear is actually a collection of individual sensations, each of which is workable when met with awareness rather than resistance. This somatic approach to working with fear is profoundly liberating. When fear arises, instead of immediately getting caught in the stories your mind generates about what you fear and why it is terrible and what might happen, you can drop your attention into the direct physical experience. You can notice the rapid heartbeat, the shallow breathing, the tension. You can observe these sensations with the same interested curiosity you might bring to watching clouds change shape. This does not mean you like the sensations or want them to continue, but you are willing to be with them, to let them be present without adding resistance or aversion. Paradoxically, when you stop fighting against the physical sensations of fear, they often begin to release. The tension starts to soften, the breath deepens, the racing heart begins to slow. Zen teachers often speak about the difference between pain and suffering, between the first arrow and the second arrow. This distinction applies powerfully to fear. The physical sensations of fear, the activation of the nervous system, the release of stress hormones, the bodily tension, these are like the first arrow. They arise naturally in response to perceived threat. The second arrow is what we do to ourselves through our mental response to these sensations, our resistance to them, our catastrophic thinking about them, our identification with them, our belief that they mean something terrible is happening or about to happen. The first arrow is unavoidable as long as we have a functioning nervous system. The second arrow is optional, and it is often the second arrow that causes the most suffering. By developing intimate familiarity with the physical experience of fear through body-centered mindfulness practice, we begin to change our relationship with it. We recognize that we can feel afraid, we can experience all the physical sensations of fear, and still be okay. The sensations themselves, while uncomfortable, are not dangerous. They are simply energy moving through the body, the nervous system doing what nervous systems do. What makes fear so overwhelming is not primarily the sensations themselves, but our resistance to them, our fear of the fear, our belief that we cannot handle what we are feeling. When we discover through direct experience that we can be present with these sensations, that we can breathe with them, that we can allow them without being consumed by them, this is tremendously empowering. We realize that fear does not have to control us, that we are bigger than our fear, that we can contain it in the spacious awareness that we truly are. Understanding the physiology of fear also helps us work with it more skillfully through breathing practices, body scanning, movement, and other somatic techniques. When we feel fear arising, we can consciously slow and deepen the breath, activating the parasympathetic nervous system and sending a signal to the body that it is safe to relax. We can do progressive muscle relaxation, systematically releasing tension from different parts of the body. We can engage in physical movement, walking, yoga, tai chi, to help discharge the activation energy. We can use body-centered meditation practices to cultivate a sense of groundedness and stability even in the midst of fear. All of these approaches work with the body directly rather than trying to change fear primarily through thinking about it differently. And because fear is fundamentally a bodily experience, these somatic approaches are often the most effective path to transformation. When the body relaxes, the mind follows.
Chapter 3. The Mind Creates Fear. Working with Thoughts. While fear manifests powerfully in the body, it is primarily generated and perpetuated by the mind. The Buddha taught that we are not disturbed by things themselves, but by our views about them, by the stories we tell, by the meanings we assign, and by the ways we mentally elaborate on our experience. A rustling in the bushes becomes a potential threat only when the mind identifies it as possibly dangerous and generates thoughts about what might emerge and what might happen if it does. The same sensation in the body becomes fear only when we interpret it as such and build a narrative around it. This is why different people can experience the same external situation with vastly different emotional responses. The situation is the same, but the mental interpretation differs. Our minds are incredibly skilled in generating fearful thoughts. We engage in catastrophic thinking, imagining the worst possible outcomes and playing them out in vivid detail. We ruminate on past experiences of fear or trauma, keeping those memories alive and fresh. We project our fears onto the future, creating elaborate scenarios of things that might go wrong. We engage in comparison, looking at others and fearing we do not measure up. We judge ourselves harshly and fear the judgment of others. We identify with our fears, believing they define us, that we are fundamentally damaged or weak or broken. All of this mental activity amplifies and sustains fear long after any actual threat has passed, or creates fear where no real threat exists at all. The practice of mindfulness offers a powerful antidote to this mental proliferation. When we develop the capacity to observe our thoughts without immediately believing them or getting caught up in them, we discover that thoughts are not facts, not commands, not solid realities. They are mental events, arising and passing based on conditions, influenced by our past experiences, our beliefs, our mood, our physical state, and countless other factors. A fearful thought arises, and instead of immediately identifying with it and acting on it, we can recognize it. This is a thought about something I fear. This simple act of recognition creates space between awareness and the content of thought. In that space, we have choice. We can investigate whether the thought is actually true. We can notice how the thought affects our body and emotions. We can choose whether to engage with the thought or to let it pass like a cloud. Zen practice takes this even further, encouraging us to question the very nature of the thinker. Who is it that is afraid? When you look for the one who is experiencing fear, what do you find? You might notice thoughts about fear, physical sensations related to fear, mental images of feared situations, but can you find a solid, separate self that is afraid? Or is there simply the arising and passing of various phenomena in awareness, none of which belongs to anyone, none of which is me? This investigation can be profoundly liberating. When the one who is afraid cannot be found, what is left to fear? There is a famous Zen koan that points to this understanding. A monk asks, "What should I do when my mind is full of fear?" The master replies, "Who is it that is full of fear?" This is not merely a clever wordplay, but a direct pointing to the investigation that dissolves fear at its root. When we genuinely inquire into who or what is experiencing fear, when we look for this self that feels threatened, we discover that it is nowhere to be found. There is simply experience arising and passing, thoughts, sensations, emotions, but no separate experiencer. And without a separate self to protect and defend, what is there to fear? Working with fearful thoughts also involves developing discernment about which thoughts to engage with and which to simply let pass. Not every thought deserves our attention and energy. Some thoughts are genuinely useful. They point to actual dangers or important issues that need addressing. But many fearful thoughts are simply the mind's habit of worrying.
the ego's attempt to maintain a sense of control, or old conditioning playing out. Through practice, we develop the wisdom to distinguish between thoughts that call for action and thoughts that simply need to be acknowledged and released. We learn to ask, is this thought pointing to a real threat in this moment, or is it an imaginary future scenario? Is there anything I actually need to do right now, or am I just spinning in worry? Is this thought serving my well-being, or is it creating unnecessary suffering? The mind's tendency to create and perpetuate fear is not a flaw or a problem to be solved by eliminating thoughts. The mind is doing what minds do, trying to keep us safe by anticipating threats and problems. The issue is that the mind often mistakes imaginary threats for real ones and responds to each with equal intensity. Through mindful awareness, we train ourselves to recognize thoughts as thoughts, to understand their conditional nature, and to relate to them skillfully. We do not try to stop thinking or to have only positive thoughts. Instead, we develop a new relationship with thinking itself, one where we are not at the mercy of every fear-driven thought that arises. This is true freedom, not freedom from thoughts, but freedom from being controlled by them. And in this freedom, fear loses much of its power to disturb our peace.
Part 2. Zen Stories on Conquering Fear. Chapter 4. The Tiger and the Strawberry, Living Fully in the Present Moment. One of the most beloved Zen stories about fear tells of a man being chased by a tiger. He runs to the edge of a cliff and, seeing no other option, lowers himself down by grabbing onto a vine. As he hangs there, he looks up to see the tiger prowling at the top of the cliff. He looks down and sees another tiger waiting at the bottom. Then he notices two mice, one black and one white, gnawing at the vine. Just beside him, growing out of the cliff face, he sees a wild strawberry. He plucks it and eats it. How sweet it tasted. This simple story captures something profound about fear and how to live with it. The man in the story faces what many would consider the ultimate fear, imminent death. He is trapped between two tigers, with his lifeline being eaten away by mice that represent the passing of time, day and night, the inevitable march toward death. Yet in this moment of extreme danger, he does not freeze in terror or give up in despair. Instead, he fully experiences the sweetness of the strawberry. He is completely present to the beauty and perfection of this moment, even though, or perhaps especially because, it might be his last. This story teaches us that fear does not have to prevent us from appreciating and engaging with life. We too are in a situation not unlike the man with the tigers. We are all facing our own mortality. Time is passing. Danger and uncertainty surround us. We could spend our entire lives paralyzed by these facts, or we can choose to taste the strawberry. The question is not whether difficult and frightening circumstances exist. They do for everyone. The question is whether we will allow those circumstances to rob us of the preciousness and beauty of this present moment. Many people interpret this story as encouragement to ignore reality and just focus on pleasure, but that misses the deeper point. The man does not pretend the tigers are not there. He is fully aware of his situation. What he does is refuse to let that situation prevent him from being present to what is arising right now. He demonstrates a kind of fierce presence, a willingness to fully inhabit this moment, regardless of what might come next. This is not denial or escapism. It is a profound acceptance of reality as it is, combined with a determination to experience life fully as long as life is present. Fear often pulls us out of the present moment. When we are afraid, we are usually either reliving past traumas or projecting future disasters. We are rarely actually in danger in this present moment, yet we live as if we are. The tigers of past and future chase us constantly, and we spend our lives running from them instead of tasting the strawberries that are available only now.
This story invites us to ask, what am I missing in this moment because I am consumed by fear of what might happen? What strawberries am I failing to taste because I am too focused on the tigers? There is also something in this story about the kind of courage that arises when we fully accept our situation without resistance. The man cannot escape the tigers. He cannot stop the mice from gnawing the vine. These facts are simply true. When we stop struggling against what we cannot change, when we accept the uncertainty and vulnerability that are inherent in being alive, a different quality of consciousness emerges. We become more present, more alive, more capable of appreciating what is here. Paradoxically, this acceptance does not make us passive or defeated. Instead, it frees us to engage fully with life as it actually is, rather than as we wish it would be. Zen master Shunryu Suzuki taught about beginner's mind, approaching each moment with fresh openness rather than through the filter of our expectations and fears. The man eating the strawberry embodies beginner's mind perfectly. He meets this moment exactly as it is, without the overlay of "this should not be happening," or "I need to figure out how to escape," or "I am doomed." He simply experiences the strawberry with complete presence. This is the practice available to each of us, to meet whatever is arising, including fear itself, with this quality of fresh, open, accepting awareness. When we do, we discover that even in the midst of difficulty, even when tigers surround us, there is still sweetness to be found, still beauty to be experienced, still life to be lived. The practice this story points to is not complicated, but it requires courage and commitment. When fear arises, instead of immediately spinning into stories about what might happen, return to the sensory experience of this present moment. What do you actually see, hear, feel, smell, taste right now? What is your direct experience beneath all the thinking? This simple practice of grounding in present moment sensory awareness is one of the most powerful antidotes to fear. Fear lives in the imagined past and future. Reality exists only in the present. By anchoring ourselves in what is actually happening now, we discover that we can be present even with fear, that fear does not have to overwhelm us, and that life continues to offer gifts even in the midst of difficulty. This is what it means to taste the strawberry while the tigers roar, to live fully, presently, fearlessly, regardless of circumstances.
Chapter 5: The Hermit and the Bandits Facing Fear Without Resistance. There was once a hermit who lived alone in the mountains, devoted to meditation and the study of the Dharma. His reputation for wisdom spread, and people would occasionally make the difficult journey to seek his counsel. One day, a group of bandits came upon his simple hut. They were known for their cruelty and had terrorized the region for years. When they burst into his hut demanding food and valuables, the hermit remained perfectly still in meditation. The bandits, angered by his apparent disrespect, shouted at him and threatened him with their weapons. Still, he sat calmly, showing no sign of fear. The leader of the bandits, frustrated, pointed his sword directly at the hermit's throat and shouted, "Don't you know who I am? I could run you through without blinking an eye." The hermit opened his eyes, looked at the bandit with compassion, and replied, "And don't you know who I am? I could be run through without blinking an eye." The bandits, shocked by this response, lowered their weapons. The leader asked, "How is it that you show no fear in the face of death?" The hermit answered, "Because I died long ago. The self you threaten does not exist. What is there to fear?" Moved by the hermit's words and presence, the bandits put down their weapons and asked to hear his teachings. Some say they went on to abandon their violent ways and become seekers of truth themselves. This powerful story illustrates several profound teachings about fear. First, it demonstrates the fearlessness that arises when we truly understand the teaching of non-self.
The hermit is not being bravely defiant or showing off his courage. He has realized through deep meditation and inquiry that the separate self the bandits are threatening is a mental construct, not an ultimate reality. When there is no solid self to defend, what is there to fear? This is not an intellectual understanding, but a lived realization that transforms one's entire relationship to life and death. The hermit has died before dying, meaning he has seen through the illusion of the separate self while still alive in the body. When you have already died to the ego self, physical death loses its terror. Second, the story shows the power of non-resistance in the face of threat. The hermit does not fight the bandits, does not try to talk them out of their violence, does not plead for his life. He simply remains present and open, meeting whatever arises with equanimity. This non-resistance is not passivity or surrender in the ordinary sense. It is a profound acceptance of reality as it is, a willingness to be with what is happening without adding the extra layer of mental resistance that we usually layer over difficult experiences. When we resist reality, when we meet danger with the thought, "this should not be happening," or fear with, "I should not feel this way," we create additional suffering on top of the difficulty itself. The hermit demonstrates what it looks like to meet even the most extreme threat without resistance, and in that non-resistance, he finds perfect peace. Third, the story reveals how our state of consciousness affects others. The hermit's fearlessness and compassion are so palpable that even hardened criminals are touched by it. When we meet fear, our own or others, with clarity and calm, we create space for transformation. The bandits came looking for material goods to steal, but what they found was a teaching more valuable than any treasure. This suggests that our work with fear is not only personal, but has ripple effects on everyone we encounter. When we are caught in fear and reactivity, we tend to trigger fear and reactivity in others. When we meet situations with presence and peace, we offer that possibility to others as well. The hermit's response to the bandit leader is particularly instructive. "I could be run through without blinking an eye." This is not bravado or a death wish. It is the confidence that comes from knowing oneself to be more than just this body, more than this temporary collection of skandhas, the 5 aggregates that Buddhism teaches make up what we call the self. When we identify exclusively with the body-mind, death appears as an absolute ending, an annihilation of everything we are. This identification is the root of the fear of death, which the Buddha said underlies all other fears. But when we realize through direct experience that our true nature is the awareness in which body, mind, and all phenomena appear, death is seen differently, not as an ending, but as a transformation, not as annihilation, but a continuation of the ever-changing flow of reality. The practical teaching we can take from this story is about where we place our identity. When we are identified with thoughts, we fear the ending of certain thoughts. When we are identified with the body, we fear bodily harm. When we are identified with relationships, we fear their loss. When we are identified with achievements, we fear failure. Each identification creates a corresponding fear. The spiritual path invites us to loosen these identifications, not by rejecting these aspects of experience, but by recognizing that they are contents of consciousness, not consciousness itself. We are the awareness that knows thoughts, not the thoughts themselves. We are the presence that experiences the body, not just the body. When this shift happens, when we rest as awareness itself rather than as the contents of awareness, fear naturally diminishes because there is nothing to defend, nothing to lose, nothing that can be truly threatened. This does not mean we become careless with our lives or indifferent to harm. The hermit had worked for years to create a peaceful life of practice. He valued that life, but he held it lightly, without grasping, understanding that even this precious life is impermanent and will someday end. This combination of caring deeply while holding lightly is the essence of wisdom. We can value and enjoy our lives without clinging to them desperately. We can take reasonable precautions against danger without being consumed by fear. We can face difficulty and even death itself with calm clarity, not because we are pretending it is not serious, but because we have touched something in ourselves that cannot be harmed, something that was never born and will never die. This is the fearlessness the Buddha spoke of, and it is available to anyone willing to do the deep work of investigating the nature of self.
Chapter 6: The Student Who Feared Death, Turning Fear into Awakening. A young Zen student came to her teacher in great distress. "Master," she said, "I am consumed by fear of death. I cannot sleep. Every moment I am aware that this body will someday cease to function, that I will die, and I am terrified. What can I do?" The master looked at her kindly and said, "Good. This fear is a gift. Use it." The student was confused and frustrated. "How can terror be a gift? I came here seeking peace, and you tell me to be grateful for this fear?" The master smiled. "Fear of death is perhaps the most honest fear. It points to the deepest truth. Everything changes. Nothing lasts. This form will dissolve. Most people spend their lives running from this truth, distracting themselves, pretending it is not so. But you cannot run. The fear has caught you. Now you have a choice. You can continue to resist this truth and suffer, or you can turn toward it fully and discover what lies on the other side of that fear." The master instructed the student to spend 1 hour each day in meditation specifically focused on her mortality. She was to contemplate the certainty of death, the uncertainty of when it would come, and the reality of the body's dissolution. She was to sit with all the fear this brought up, not pushing it away, not trying to transform it into something else, but simply being present with it fully. The student was skeptical, but desperate, so she agreed to try. For weeks, the meditations were agony. She would sit and feel wave after wave of terror wash through her body. Her mind would create vivid images of her death. She would shake and cry and want to run away, but she stayed with it, as the master had instructed. Then one day, something shifted. As she sat with the familiar fear of death, a question arose. Who is it that dies? She began to investigate this question. The body dies, clearly. Thoughts cease, emotions end. All the things she normally identified as me would indeed dissolve. But was there something that did not dissolve? She noticed that in this very moment there was awareness present, the awareness that knew her thoughts, that experienced her fear, that witnessed the arising and passing of all phenomena. What was this awareness? Could it die? As she investigated, she could not find a beginning or an end to this awareness. It seemed to be always already present, not dependent on the body, not created by the mind. It was the space in which everything appeared, but it itself was not a thing that could be born or die. In that moment of seeing, the fear of death dropped away. Not because she convinced herself she would not die, the body would absolutely die, but because she recognized that what she truly was, this awareness itself, had no beginning and no end. Death was real, but it was not what she had imagined. It was not the ending of everything, but simply a transformation, like a wave returning to the ocean. The wave appears for a time and then dissolves, but the ocean remains. She was not the wave, she was the ocean. This recognition brought profound peace and freedom, not freedom from death, but freedom from the fear of death, which is not the same thing at all. She went to her master and tried to express what she had discovered. Before she could speak, the master said, "Ah, I see. The fear has served its purpose. Now you know." The student asked, "But master, you knew this all along. Why did you make me go through such torment? Could you not have just told me what I would discover?" The master laughed. "I could tell you that fire is hot, but until you put your hand close to the flame, you do not really know.
I could tell you that the self is empty, that awareness is deathless, that fear is just a thought, but these would be only words. You needed to discover it for yourself through direct investigation. Fear was your teacher. It drove you to look deeply, to question what you had always assumed to be true, to discover what is actually real. Without that fear, you might have stayed on the surface, content with intellectual understanding. Fear pushed you into the depths where real wisdom lives. This story illustrates a teaching that may seem strange or even cruel at first. Fear can be a doorway to liberation. Most spiritual teachings seem to focus on eliminating fear, on finding peace and comfort, but the Zen approach is often more radical. It says, meet your fear directly, investigate it thoroughly, use it as a catalyst for awakening. The things we are most afraid of often point to our deepest attachments and most fundamental misunderstandings. By turning toward fear rather than away from it, by questioning the assumptions that underlie it, we can discover truths about reality and about ourselves that we would never have found if we had stayed comfortable and untroubled. The student's practice of contemplating death, often called maranasti in Buddhism, is a classical meditation practice. It is not meant to make us morbid or depressed, but to wake us up to the preciousness of life and the urgency of practice. When we truly understand that we will die, that this could be our last day, our last hour, our priorities become very clear. We stop wasting time on petty concerns.
Chapter 6. The Student Who Feared Death, Turning Fear into Awakening. A young Zen student came to her teacher in great distress. "Master," she said, "I am consumed by fear of death. I cannot sleep. Every moment I am aware that this body will someday cease to function, that I will die, and I am terrified. What can I do?" The master looked at her kindly and said, "Good. This fear is a gift. Use it." The student was confused and frustrated. "How can terror be a gift? I came here seeking peace, and you tell me to be grateful for this fear?" The master smiled. "Fear of death is perhaps the most honest fear. It points to the deepest truth. Everything changes. Nothing lasts. This form will dissolve." Most people spend their lives running from this truth, distracting themselves, pretending it is not so. But you cannot run. The fear has caught you. Now you have a choice. You can continue to resist this truth and suffer, or you can turn toward it fully and discover what lies on the other side of that fear. The master instructed the student to spend 1 hour each day in meditation, specifically focused on her mortality. She was to contemplate the certainty of death, the uncertainty of when it would come, and the reality of the body's dissolution. She was to sit with all the fear this brought up, not pushing it away, not trying to transform it into something else, but simply being present with it fully. The student was skeptical but desperate, so she agreed to try. For weeks, the meditations were agony. She would sit and feel wave after wave of terror wash through her body. Her mind would create vivid images of her death. She would shake and cry and want to run away, but she stayed with it, as the master had instructed. Then one day, something shifted. As she sat with the familiar fear of death, a question arose. Who is it that dies? She began to investigate this question. The body dies, clearly. Thoughts cease. Emotions end. All the things she normally identified as me would indeed dissolve. But was there something that did not dissolve? She noticed that in this very moment there was awareness present. The awareness that knew her thoughts, that experienced her fear, that witnessed the arising and passing of all phenomena. What was this awareness? Could it die? As she investigated, she could not find a beginning or an end to this awareness. It seemed to be always already present, not dependent on the body, not created by the mind. It was the space in which everything appeared, but it itself was not a thing that could be born or die. In that moment of seeing, the fear of death dropped away.
not because she convinced herself she would not die, the body would absolutely die, but because she recognized that what she truly was, this awareness itself, had no beginning and no end. Death was real, but it was not what she had imagined. It was not the ending of everything, but simply a transformation, like a wave returning to the ocean. The wave appears for a time and then dissolves, but the ocean remains. She was not the wave, she was the ocean. This recognition brought profound peace and freedom, not freedom from death, but freedom from the fear of death, which is not the same thing at all. She went to her master and tried to express what she had discovered. Before she could speak, the master said, "Ah, I see. The fear has served its purpose. Now you know." The student asked, "But master, you knew this all along. Why did you make me go through such torment? Could you not have just told me what I would discover?" The master laughed. "I could tell you that fire is hot, but until you put your hand close to the flame, you do not really know. I could tell you that the self is empty, that awareness is deathless, that fear is just a thought, but these would be only words. You needed to discover it for yourself through direct investigation. Fear was your teacher. It drove you to look deeply, to question what you had always assumed to be true, to discover what is actually real. Without that fear, you might have stayed on the surface, content with intellectual understanding. Fear pushed you into the depths where real wisdom lives." This story illustrates Part 3. Practical Methods for Working with Fear. Chapter 7. Mindfulness of Fear, the Practice of Turning Toward. When fear arises, our habitual tendency is to turn away from it, to distract ourselves, to numb out, to think our way out of it, or to engage in behaviors that provide temporary relief. We might eat, drink, shop, scroll through social media, binge-watch television, or throw ourselves into work, anything to avoid the unpleasant experience of fear. While these strategies might provide short-term comfort, they do not actually address the fear. In fact, they often strengthen it, because each time we run from fear, we reinforce the belief that fear is intolerable, that we cannot handle it, that we are weak or damaged. The fear gains power through our avoidance of it. The Buddhist practice of mindfulness offers a radically different approach. Turn toward the fear. Instead of running away, stop, become still, and bring your full attention to the experience of fear itself. This is not about wallowing in fear or dramatizing it. It is about meeting fear with clear, compassionate awareness. When you notice fear arising, you can acknowledge it. Fear is here. Then you can investigate it. Where do I feel this in my body? What sensations are present? What thoughts are arising? What emotions are here? What is the actual experience of fear when I look at it closely? This practice of mindful investigation transforms our relationship with fear in several ways. First, it creates space between awareness and fear. When we are lost in fear, completely identified with it, there is only fear. We become fear. But when we observe fear with mindfulness, there are two things present: the fear and the awareness that knows the fear. This distinction is profoundly important. It reveals that we are not our fear. We are the spacious awareness in which fear arises and passes. This awareness is never afraid, never anxious, never threatened. It simply knows whatever is present, including fear, with perfect equanimity. Recognizing this, we begin to rest more and more in awareness itself, rather than in the contents of awareness. Second, mindful investigation reveals the impermanent, changing nature of fear. When we actually pay attention to fear, we notice that it is not a solid block, but a dynamic process. The intensity rises and falls. Different sensations come and go. Thoughts appear and disappear. Emotions shift. Fear is not one thing, but a constantly changing constellation of experiences. When we see this directly, fear becomes less overwhelming because we understand that it will not stay at peak intensity forever. It will change, it will lessen, it will pass. This understanding itself reduces fear's power over us. Third, bringing attention to fear often reveals that it is not as overwhelming as we imagined. When we avoid fear, it grows in our imagination. We tell ourselves stories about how unbearable it would be to really feel this fear. But when we actually turn toward it and feel it fully, we often discover that while it is uncomfortable, it is not unbearable. We can be present with it. We can breathe with it. We can stay conscious and aware even in the midst of it. This discovery of our capacity to be with difficulty is incredibly empowering. We realize we are stronger and more resilient than we believed. The practice of mindfulness of fear can be done both formally in meditation and informally in daily life. In formal practice, you sit in meditation and deliberately bring to mind something you fear. Notice what arises in the body and mind. Stay with it. Breathe with it. Observe it closely. When you get lost in thoughts about the fear, gently return attention to the direct experience, the sensations, the emotions, the energy of fear as it manifests moment by moment. Do not try to make the fear go away. Do not try to replace it with positive thoughts. Simply be present with it, allowing it to be exactly as it is. This is the practice of compassionate, non-reactive presence. In daily life, when fear arises, whether it is
Part 3. Practical Methods for Working with Fear. Chapter 7. Mindfulness of Fear, the Practice of Turning Toward. When fear arises, our habitual tendency is to turn away from it, to distract ourselves, to numb out, to think our way out of it, or to engage in behaviors that provide temporary relief. We might eat, drink, shop, scroll through social media, binge-watch television, or throw ourselves into work, anything to avoid the unpleasant experience of fear. While these strategies might provide short-term comfort, they do not actually address the fear. In fact, they often strengthen it, because each time we run from fear, we reinforce the belief that fear is intolerable, that we cannot handle it, that we are weak or damaged. The fear gains power through our avoidance of it. The Buddhist practice of mindfulness offers a radically different approach. Turn toward the fear. Instead of running away, stop, become still, and bring your full attention to the experience of fear itself. This is not about wallowing in fear or dramatizing it. It is about meeting fear with clear, compassionate awareness. When you notice fear arising, you can acknowledge it. Fear is here. Then you can investigate it. Where do I feel this in my body? What sensations are present? What thoughts are arising? What emotions are here? What is the actual experience of fear when I look at it closely? This practice of mindful investigation transforms our relationship with fear in several ways. First, it creates space between awareness and fear. When we are lost in fear, completely identified with it, there is only fear. We become fear. But when we observe fear with mindfulness, there are two things present: the fear and the awareness that knows the fear. This distinction is profoundly important. It reveals that we are not our fear. We are the spacious awareness in which fear arises and passes. This awareness is never afraid, never anxious, never threatened. It simply knows whatever is present, including fear, with perfect equanimity. Recognizing this, we begin to rest more and more in awareness itself, rather than in the contents of awareness. Second, mindful investigation reveals the impermanent, changing nature of fear. When we actually pay attention to fear, we notice that it is not a solid block, but a dynamic process.
The intensity rises and falls. Different sensations come and go. Thoughts appear and disappear. Emotions shift. Fear is not one thing, but a constantly changing constellation of experiences. When we see this directly, fear becomes less overwhelming because we understand that it will not stay at peak intensity forever. It will change, it will lessen, it will pass. This understanding itself reduces fear's power over us. Third, bringing attention to fear often reveals that it is not as overwhelming as we imagined. When we avoid fear, it grows in our imagination. We tell ourselves stories about how unbearable it would be to really feel this fear. But when we actually turn toward it and feel it fully, we often discover that while it is uncomfortable, it is not unbearable. We can be present with it. We can breathe with it. We can stay conscious and aware even in the midst of it. This discovery of our capacity to be with difficulty is incredibly empowering. We realize we are stronger and more resilient than we believed. The practice of mindfulness of fear can be done both formally in meditation and informally in daily life. In formal practice, you sit in meditation and deliberately bring to mind something you fear. Notice what arises in the body and mind. Stay with it. Breathe with it. Observe it closely. When you get lost in thoughts about the fear, gently return attention to the direct experience, the sensations, the emotions, the energy of fear as it manifests moment by moment. Do not try to make the fear go away. Do not try to replace it with positive thoughts. Simply be present with it, allowing it to be exactly as it is. This is the practice of compassionate, non-reactive presence. In daily life, when fear arises, whether it is anxiety about a presentation, worry about a relationship, panic about finances, or any other fear, you can pause, take a breath, and turn your attention to the direct experience of fear. Even just a few moments of this mindful awareness can begin to shift your relationship with fear. Instead of being completely caught in it, you remember that you have a choice. You can continue to resist and run, or you can stop, become present, and meet the fear with awareness. An essential aspect of this practice is self-compassion. When we turn toward fear, we often encounter a lot of self-judgment. We tell ourselves we should not be afraid, that we are weak for feeling fear, that something is wrong with us. This self-judgment creates additional suffering.
Chapter 8. Breathing with Fear, Using the Breath as an Anchor. The breath is one of the most powerful tools we have for working with fear. In every wisdom tradition, from Buddhism to Taoism to yoga, the breath is recognized as a bridge between body and mind, between conscious and unconscious, between voluntary and involuntary processes. When we are afraid, the breath becomes rapid and shallow. The chest tightens. We might even hold our breath without realizing it. This shallow, restricted breathing signals danger to the nervous system, which triggers more fear in a self-reinforcing cycle. But this also means we can interrupt the fear cycle by consciously changing the breath. By slowing and deepening the breath, we activate the parasympathetic nervous system, which calms the body and settles the mind. The Buddha taught anapanasati, mindfulness of breathing, as one of the fundamental meditation practices. In the Anapanasati Sutta, he gives detailed instructions on how to use the breath as an object of meditation to develop concentration, insight, and liberation. While this practice can become quite refined and subtle, its basic application to working with fear is simple and accessible to anyone. When fear arises, pay attention to your breathing. Notice how you are breathing. Without trying to change anything at first, simply observe the breath as it is. Is it fast or slow? Shallow or deep? Smooth or irregular? Where do you feel it most? In the chest, the belly, the nostrils? This initial observation, this simple act of bringing awareness to the breath, already begins to create some space around the fear.
Once you have observed the breath as it is, you can begin to work with it skillfully to calm the nervous system and settle the mind. One of the most effective techniques is to extend the exhalation, making it longer than the inhalation. You might breathe in for a count of 4 and breathe out for a count of 6 or 8. This extended exhalation activates the vagus nerve and signals to the body that it is safe to relax. You do not need to force or strain. Keep the breath comfortable and natural, just gently encouraging the out-breath to lengthen. Even a few minutes of this breathing can significantly reduce the intensity of fear and anxiety. Another powerful technique is belly breathing or diaphragmatic breathing. When we are stressed or afraid, we tend to breathe shallowly into the chest. This chest breathing is associated with the fight or flight response and keeps the nervous system activated. Belly breathing, by contrast, engages the diaphragm and allows for deeper, fuller breaths that promote relaxation. To practice belly breathing, place one hand on your chest and one hand on your belly. As you breathe in, allow the belly to expand, letting the hand on your belly rise while the hand on your chest stays relatively still. As you breathe out, the belly naturally falls. This may feel awkward at first if you are accustomed to chest breathing, but with practice it becomes natural and deeply calming. The breath can also serve as an anchor to the present moment. When fear grips us, our minds typically race to the future, imagining all the terrible things that might happen. By bringing attention back to the breath again and again, we train ourselves to stay present. The breath is always happening now. You cannot breathe in the past or the future, so each time you return attention to the breath, you're returning to this present moment, where you have the resources to meet whatever is actually here, as opposed to what you imagine might be coming. In Zen practice, there's a beautiful instruction. Breathing in, I am aware I am breathing in. Breathing out, I am aware I am breathing out. This simple noting of the breath brings the mind into the body and the present moment. It interrupts the stream of fearful thinking and grounds us in direct experience. You can expand this practice by including awareness of what is present with each breath. Breathing in, I notice fear in my chest. Breathing out, I allow the fear to be here. Or, breathing in, I am present. Breathing out, I am calm. These kinds of coordinated breathing and mindfulness practices bring body, breath, and mind into alignment, creating an integrated state of aware presence that is naturally more stable and less vulnerable to being overwhelmed by fear. It is important to understand that using the breath to work with fear is not about suppressing fear or using breathing techniques to force yourself to feel a certain way. The breath is not a tool to make fear go away. Rather, it is a way to create the conditions in which you can be present with fear without being consumed by it. When the body is calmer, when the breath is steady, you have more capacity to meet fear with awareness rather than pure reactivity. You create an internal foundation of stability from which you can observe and investigate fear. Some people find it helpful to use breath counting as a way to stabilize attention when fear is very intense. You might count each exhalation from 1 to 10 and then start over. If you lose count, simply begin again at 1. This gives the mind something to do, preventing it from spinning out in fearful scenarios, while the regular rhythm of breathing soothes the nervous system. Others prefer to use phrases or words with the breath, such as letting go on the out-breath, or here on the in-breath, and now on the out-breath. Experiment with different approaches to find what works best for you. The relationship between breath and fear is bidirectional. Fear affects the breath, making it shallow and rapid. But by working skillfully with the breath, we can also affect the fear, helping it to soften and settle. Over time, as you practice breathing with fear regularly, you may find that you can sense fear arising earlier, before it has built to overwhelming intensity, and you can meet it immediately with conscious breathing. This early intervention can prevent fear from spiraling out of control. The breath becomes a friend, a reliable resource you can always turn to, no matter what is happening. In the midst of the storm of fear, the breath is an anchor that holds you steady, allowing you to weather the fear without being swept away by it.
Chapter 9. Loving kindness in the face of fear. The practice of metta. One of the most powerful and often overlooked practices for working with fear is metta, or loving kindness meditation. In the Buddhist tradition, metta is the wish for all beings to be happy, peaceful, and free from suffering. It is typically cultivated through formal meditation practice, where you systematically send good wishes to yourself, to loved ones, to neutral people, to difficult people, and finally to all beings everywhere. While metta practice is valuable for many reasons, it has particular potency when applied to fear. When we are afraid, we tend to contract, to armor ourselves, to become harsh and defensive. Metta is the antidote to this contraction. It softens the heart, opens our capacity for compassion, and reminds us that we are not alone in our struggle with fear. The Buddha taught metta as a protection. In the Metta Sutta, he says that one who practices loving kindness diligently dwells happily in this very life and is protected from danger. This protection is not magical or supernatural, but psychological and spiritual. When the heart is filled with loving kindness, there is less room for fear. When we cultivate genuine goodwill toward ourselves and others, we undermine the sense of separation and threat that feeds fear. We recognize our common humanity, our shared vulnerability, and our mutual wish to be safe and happy. This recognition dissolves some of the isolation and helplessness that often accompany fear. To practice metta specifically for working with fear, you begin by bringing to mind something you fear. Allow yourself to feel the fear in your body and heart. Then, with great gentleness, you offer yourself phrases of loving kindness, such as, "May I be safe. May I be peaceful. May I be free from fear. May I be happy." You are not trying to make the fear go away with these phrases. You are surrounding the fear with kindness and care. You are holding yourself tenderly even in the midst of difficulty. This is a profoundly healing practice, particularly if you tend toward self-criticism when you are afraid. You can also extend metta to others who share your fear. If you are afraid of illness, you can think of all beings everywhere who are dealing with illness and fear of illness, and you can wish them health, courage, and peace. If you are afraid of loss, you can think of all those grieving or facing loss, and you can wish them comfort and healing. This practice reminds you that you are not alone in your fear. Countless beings are experiencing the same fears. This recognition can be comforting and can reduce the sense of isolation that often intensifies fear. Another dimension of metta practice in relation to fear involves sending loving kindness to the feared object or person. This might seem strange at first, but it can be transformative. If you fear someone, you might practice, "May they be peaceful. May they be free from hatred. May they cause no harm. May they be happy." This does not mean you approve of harmful behavior or that you stop protecting yourself from actual danger, but it shifts your inner stance from one of pure fear and aversion to one that includes some understanding and compassion. This shift can reduce the emotional charge of the fear. Importantly, the practice of metta begins with offering kindness to yourself. Many people find this the most difficult part of the practice. We are often much harsher and more critical with ourselves than we would be with a stranger. But self-compassion is not self-indulgence or weakness. It is the foundation of all genuine compassion and wisdom. When you can meet your own fear with kindness, when you can comfort yourself the way you would comfort a frightened child, something in you relaxes. The fear itself may not immediately disappear, but your relationship to it changes. You are no longer at war with yourself for being afraid. You can be afraid and still okay, still worthy of love and care.
The Tibetan Buddhist teacher Pema Chodron speaks beautifully about the practice of Tonglen, or sending and receiving, which combines metta with working directly with fear and suffering. In Tonglen practice, you breathe in the suffering and fear, your own or others, and you breathe out relief, compassion, and peace. This might sound masochistic, but it is actually incredibly powerful. By willingly taking in what we usually try to avoid, we discover that we are not destroyed by it. We are big enough, strong enough to be present with fear and suffering. And by breathing out compassion and peace, we cultivate the qualities that naturally dissolve fear. This practice reverses our normal pattern of trying to hold on to pleasant experiences and push away unpleasant ones. It trains us in acceptance, courage, and unconditional love. Loving kindness practice works with fear at the level of the heart, rather than primarily at the level of the mind, though of course all three are interconnected. Fear often creates a closed, defended heart. We become suspicious, guarded, unable to trust. Metta gently opens the heart again. It reminds us of our basic goodness and the basic goodness of life, even when circumstances are difficult. It reconnects us to our natural capacity for warmth, kindness, and care. In this state of heart openness, fear has less grip. We are more resilient, more resourceful, more able to face difficulty without being overwhelmed. The practice of metta for working with fear can be done formally in meditation or informally in moments when fear arises. If you wake in the night gripped by anxiety, you can place a hand on your heart and silently say, "May I be peaceful. May I be safe." If you are about to enter a situation you fear, you can take a moment to wish yourself well. "May I have courage. May I be supported. May all be well." These small acts of self-kindness accumulate over time, creating an internal environment of support and care that makes fear less overwhelming and more workable. The heart that has been trained in loving kindness is a refuge in the midst of fear, a place of safety and warmth that no external circumstance can destroy.
Part 4. The Deepest Freedom Beyond Fear. Chapter 10. The Fearless Heart, Cultivating Abiding Courage. To conquer fear and become truly free is to cultivate what the Buddha called a heart released, a state of consciousness that is not dependent on external circumstances for its peace. This is not an endpoint that we reach and then maintain effortlessly forever. Rather, it is an ongoing practice, a continual returning to presence, wisdom, and compassion in the face of whatever arises. The fearless heart is not a heart that never experiences the arising of fear. As we have seen throughout these teachings, even awakened beings can experience the physiological and mental phenomena we call fear. Rather, it is a heart that is not controlled by fear, not diminished by it, not defined by it. The cultivation of this fearless heart involves all the practices and understandings we have explored in these pages, understanding the nature of fear as a conditioned phenomenon rather than a solid reality, developing intimate awareness of the physical, mental, and emotional components of fear, practicing mindfulness and turning toward fear with courageous presence, using the breath as an anchor and tool for working with activation in the nervous system, cultivating loving kindness towards ourselves and all beings, investigating the nature of self and discovering that the separate self we are trying to protect does not exist as we imagine it to, and recognizing that awareness itself, our true nature, is inherently fearless, spacious, and unshakable. These practices work together synergistically. As we develop mindfulness, we become more aware of when fear is arising and can meet it skillfully before it overwhelms us. As we practice loving kindness, we create an internal environment of warmth and support that makes us more resilient. As we investigate the nature of self, we undermine the very foundation upon which fear is built.
As we learn to breathe with difficulty and stay embodied in the midst of challenge, we develop confidence in our capacity to handle what life brings. Each practice strengthens the others, and over time they transform our relationship with fear so thoroughly that we barely recognize ourselves as the person who was once controlled by anxiety and terror. There is a teaching in Buddhism about the difference between worldly freedom and transcendent freedom. Worldly freedom is what most people seek: freedom from difficulty, from pain, from challenge, from fear. We imagine that if we can just arrange our lives perfectly, eliminate all threats, secure all the things we need, then we will be free and happy. But this kind of freedom is impossible to achieve. Life is inherently uncertain, change is constant, loss is inevitable. No matter how much we try to control our circumstances, we cannot eliminate all sources of fear. Even if we succeed in creating a comfortable life for a time, the fear remains. Fear that what we have will be taken away, fear that circumstances will change, fear of the inevitable ending that comes to all conditioned things. Transcendent freedom is what the Buddha pointed toward. Freedom not from difficulty, but from being controlled by our reactivity to difficulty. This is the freedom to meet life as it is, including its uncertainties, challenges, and losses, with wisdom, equanimity, and compassion. When we have this freedom, we can experience fear when it arises without being consumed by it. We can face difficulty without collapsing into despair. We can acknowledge pain without being destroyed by it. This freedom is not dependent on external circumstances being a certain way. It is an inner liberation that remains stable regardless of what is happening around us. This is what it means to have a fearless heart. Not that we never feel fear, but that fear no longer dictates our choices, controls our behavior, or defines our experience of life. The path to this freedom is not easy, but it is possible for anyone willing to practice with dedication and sincerity. It requires that we face what we have been avoiding, that we question what we have taken for granted, that we soften where we have been hard, and that we develop courage where we have been timid. It asks us to turn toward fear rather than away from it, to investigate it deeply rather than take our assumptions about it at face value, and to meet it with the same caring attention we would bring to anything precious and important. Along this path, there will be moments of profound insight when the nature of fear becomes clear, when the separate self dissolves, and we recognize our true nature as boundless awareness. There will also be long periods of patient practice where we simply show up day after day, doing our meditation, working with our fears as they arise, cultivating kindness and wisdom incrementally. Both the dramatic insights and the patient daily practice are necessary. The insights show us what is possible and give us glimpses of freedom. The patient daily practice integrates those insights into our being and helps us stabilize in the understanding we have glimpsed. It is important to have realistic expectations on this path. We do not suddenly become perfectly fearless, never to be troubled by anxiety or worry again. What happens is more subtle but equally profound. We develop a new relationship with fear. We become less identified with it. We recognize it more quickly when it arises. We have more tools for working with it skillfully. We understand its nature more deeply. We meet it with more compassion and less resistance. Over time, fear's grip loosens. We find ourselves less controlled by anxiety, more capable of making choices based on wisdom rather than fear, more capable of taking risks and embracing life fully despite its uncertainties. The fearless heart is characterized by several qualities. First, there is presence, the capacity to be fully here, now, regardless of what is arising. Second, there is acceptance, not passive resignation, but a willingness to meet reality as it is, rather than as we wish it to be. Third, there is compassion, the warmth of heart that feels care for all beings, including ourselves. Fourth, there is wisdom, the clear seeing that understands the nature of fear, the nature of self, and the nature of reality. And fifth, there is courage, not the absence of fear, but the willingness to act in alignment with our values despite fear, to take the next step even when we are uncertain of the outcome. These practices work together synergistically. As we develop mindfulness, we become more aware of when fear is arising and can meet it skillfully before it overwhelms us. As we practice loving kindness, we create an internal environment of warmth and support that makes us more resilient. As we investigate the nature of self, we undermine the very foundation upon which fear is built. As we learn to breathe with difficulty and stay embodied in the midst of challenge, we develop confidence in our capacity to handle what life brings. Each practice strengthens the others, and over time they transform our relationship with fear so thoroughly that we barely recognize ourselves as the person who was once controlled by anxiety and terror. There is a teaching in Buddhism about the difference between worldly freedom and transcendent freedom. Worldly freedom is what most people seek, freedom from difficulty, from pain, from challenge, from fear. We imagine that if we can just arrange our lives perfectly, eliminate all threats, secure all the things we need, then we will be free and happy. But this kind of freedom is impossible to achieve. Life is inherently uncertain, change is constant, loss is inevitable. No matter how much we try to control our circumstances, we cannot eliminate all sources of fear. Even if we succeed in creating a comfortable life for a time, the fear remains. Fear that what we have will be taken away, fear that circumstances will change, fear of the inevitable ending that comes to all conditioned things. Transcendent freedom is what the Buddha pointed toward. Freedom not from difficulty, but from being controlled by our reactivity to difficulty. This is the freedom to meet life as it is, including its uncertainties, challenges, and losses, with wisdom, equanimity, and compassion. When we have this freedom, we can experience fear when it arises without being consumed by it. We can face difficulty without collapsing into despair. We can acknowledge pain without being destroyed by it. This freedom is not dependent on external circumstances being a certain way. It is an inner liberation that remains stable regardless of what is happening around us. This is what it means to have a fearless heart. Not that we never feel fear, but that fear no longer dictates our choices, controls our behavior, or defines our experience of life. The path to this freedom is not easy, but it is possible for anyone willing to practice with dedication and sincerity. It requires that we face what we have been avoiding, that we question what we have taken for granted, that we soften where we have been hard, and that we develop courage where we have been timid. It asks us to turn toward fear rather than away from it, to investigate it deeply rather than take our assumptions about it at face value, and to meet it with the same caring attention we would bring to anything precious and important. Along this path, there will be moments of profound insight when the nature of fear becomes clear, when the separate self dissolves and we recognize our true nature as boundless awareness. There will also be long periods of patient practice where we simply...
Conclusion: the ongoing practice, living with fearless presence. As we come to the end of this exploration of fear and freedom, it is important to remember that this is not truly an ending, but a beginning. You've been introduced to profound teachings and practices that can transform your relationship with fear. But these teachings will only bear fruit through your own dedicated practice and direct investigation. Reading about these principles is valuable, but it is not the same as living them, applying them, testing them in the laboratory of your own experience. The real work begins now as you take these teachings off the page and into your life. The practices we've explored, mindfulness of fear, working with the breath, cultivating loving kindness, investigating the nature of self, and all the rest are not meant to be done once and then set aside. They are practices to return to again and again, each time deepening your understanding and capacity. Each time fear arises, you have an opportunity to practice. Each moment of difficulty is an invitation to apply these teachings. This is how transformation happens, not through a single dramatic insight, though such insights do occur, but through the patient, consistent application of wisdom and compassion to our actual lived experience. Be gentle with yourself on this path. There will be times when fear overwhelms you, when you forget everything you've learned, when you react in old patterns despite your best intentions. This is normal and part of the process. Do not judge yourself harshly for these moments. Instead, use them as opportunities for self-compassion and to renew your commitment to awareness. Each time you notice that you have been lost in fear and you return to presence, you are strengthening your capacity for freedom. Each time you meet your fear with kindness rather than self-criticism, you are cultivating the fearless heart. The practice is not about perfection, but about sincere, ongoing effort and a willingness to keep beginning again. Find support for your practice, whether through a meditation group, a teacher, a spiritual community, or simply friends who share your interest in this path. Having others to practice with can provide encouragement, accountability, and shared wisdom. The Buddha spoke of the importance of Sangha, the community of practitioners, as one of the 3 jewels of Buddhism. We are not meant to walk this path in isolation. We benefit enormously from the support, wisdom, and companionship of others who are engaged in the same work of transformation. Remember, too, that the work you do with your own fear has ripple effects far beyond your individual life. As you become less reactive, less controlled by fear, you naturally become a calming presence for others. Your peace contributes to their peace. Your fearlessness inspires their courage. The transformation of consciousness that begins with working with your own fear radiates outward, touching everyone you encounter. In this way, your personal practice becomes a gift to the world. By freeing yourself from fear, you help create the conditions for others to find freedom as well. The path from fear to freedom is ultimately a path of coming home, home to our true nature, home to the present moment, home to the fearless awareness that we have always been beneath all the layers of conditioning, confusion, and contraction. This home is not somewhere else, not in the future, not dependent on any particular circumstances. It is right here, right now, closer than your own breath, more intimate than your own thoughts. It is the awareness that is reading these words, the presence that illuminates your experience, the space in which fear arises and passes like clouds in the sky. May these teachings serve you well. May they help you find freedom from fear and discover the fearless heart that has always been your deepest truth. May you meet each moment with presence, each difficulty with courage, each being with compassion. And may you know in the depths of your being that you are already whole, already free, already home. The journey is complete in this very moment, and yet it continues, breath by breath, step by step, with each opportunity to choose awareness over unconsciousness, wisdom over ignorance, love over fear. This is the path. This is the practice. This is the way to conquer fear and become truly free. And so we end where we began. Fear is a universal human experience, but it need not be our prison. Through understanding, practice, and the cultivation of wisdom and compassion, we can transform our relationship with fear so completely that what once controlled us becomes a teacher, a doorway, a catalyst for awakening. The Buddha showed this path. Countless practitioners across the centuries have verified it through their own experience. Now it is available to you in this moment through your sincere engagement with these teachings. May your journey be blessed with insight, courage, and the unshakable peace of the fearless heart.